Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Three tails, old yin. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. start by reading a passage from Vitality, Energy, Spirit, a Taoist source book. This comprehensive anthology traces the teaching on the three treasures, vitality, energy, and spirit, through the long history of Taoism, along with brief selections from the classic texts of Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu. The book presents a rich selection of tales and sayings from Taoist literature, as well as a broad range of writings from the Complete Reality School. Within Vitality, Energy, Spirit, we will be reading commentary on Ancestor Lu's 100-character tablet, starting in to the second part of the text. Using the Tao to preserve the body is something done by non-doing. Using arts to prolong life is something done by doing. In people of superior qualities, the primal energy has not lost its pure yang body. Keep to the center. Embrace the one, and it is possible to preserve that original real body. In mediocre and lesser people, the primal energy has already been damaged. Yang has been overthrown by yin. It is necessary to steal yin and yang, take over creation, and first stabilize the foundation of life, entering non-doing by way of doing, before it is possible to attain realization. Furthermore, as an ancient immortal said, to restore the elixir is very easy. To refine the self is very hard. The classic Spring Pervading the Garden also says the restored elixir is in people. First they must refine themselves and await the right time. The accomplishment of self-refinement starts with conquering the mind, but to conquer the mind, it is necessary to know the mind. There is a distinction in the mind between the human mind and the Tao mind, a difference between the true mind and the artificial mind. The Tao mind is the original true mind that obeys the laws of the universe without consciously knowing it. The human mind is the artificial mind of acquired consciousness, cognition, feelings, and desires. The true mind enhances people's essence and life. The artificial mind damages people's essence and life. To conquer the mind means to conquer the artificiality of the human mind. But conquering the human mind is not a matter of fixating on the mind, emptying the mind, or forcibly steadying the mind. It is necessary to go along with its natural state. As the classic Understanding Reality says, go along with desires, gradually guiding them. This is the secret of conquering the mind. This is why the text says, conquer the mind, do non-doing. When it says do, it means the mind must be conquered. When it says non-doing, it means not to conquer it by force. Conquering without trying to conquer, not trying to conquer yet conquering. Within active action, there is non-action. Within effortless effort, you exert effort. This is because the stubborn human mind has piled up habits until they have become a nature, and if you try too quickly to control it, this is using the mind to control the mind, which will just make you mind more, affirming the habit nature all the more. Instead of succeeding in controlling the mind, this will create mental illness. This is what the classic on yin convergence means when it says, when fire arises in wood, disaster takes place with ineluctable force. Therefore, conquering the mind requires application of the efforts of gradual cultivation. The work of gradual cultivation does not injure anyone else, does benefit to oneself, doing yet non-doing. Active or quiet, know the source progenitor. There is no thing. Whom else do you seek? The primal true one energy is the generative energy that gives birth to heaven, earth, and human beings. It contains all patterns and is present at all times. This is what is called the source progenitor of essence and life. Those who keep aware of this are sages. Those who ignore it are ordinary people. But this energy becomes concealed when it is submerged under acquired conditioning. It may appear every now and then, but people are so preoccupied with getting something, if only respect, and they are so agog with personal whims that they miss it even when it is right in front of their faces. Now it's there, now it's gone. If you want to look for this energy, first you need to recognize the Tao mind, because the primal energy is stored in the Tao mind. The Tao mind is the substance. The primal energy is the function. They have different names, but their source is the same. The Tao mind is the source progenitor of cultivation of the Tao. The Tao mind is the master. The human mind is the servant. To know the source progenitor is to have the master employ the servant. The servant listens to the directions of the master and is docile without being forcibly overcome. Each action, each rest is all the operation of the Tao mind. The human mind itself turns into the Tao mind. Inwardly, there are no errant thoughts. Outwardly, no arbitrary concerns. Inside and outside are peaceful and quiet. External energies cannot penetrate. This is the realm of nothing. If you can reach the realm of no thing, you find it empty and clear. There is nothing but the Tao mind. Whom else do you seek? Real constancy should respond to people. In responding to people, it is essential not to get confused. Once you know the source progenitor and are in a state of no thing, then realization can be constant. When realization can be constant, external artificialities cannot damage it. However, the path of real constancy is not a matter of avoiding society or leaving the ordinary world. It is also not a matter of sitting quietly and stopping thoughts. Your feet must walk on the real ground, practicing the path strongly with your whole body, refining it in the furnace of creation. Only then is it real and constant. If you know the real but do not know how to act on the real, even if you can attain the state of no thing, you will be like a wooden sculpture or a clay statue. Even though there is no thing outside, you cannot avoid having something inside. This is what is called closing the door, trapping the burglar. The artificial cannot leave. The real will get hurt. How is it possible to be really constant? Therefore, the text says that real constancy should respond to people, and in responding to people, it is essential not to get confused. Real constancy responding to people here means the real responding to the artificial. In responding to people, it is essential not to get confused, in that we use the artificial to cultivate the real. This is because the real is hidden in the artificial. The artificial is not outside the real. Without the artificial, we cannot attain realization. Without the real, we cannot transform the artificial. It is just a matter of always being responsive, yet always being calm, stealing the mechanism of life from within the mechanism of death, steering a boat calmly through the waves, high and dry. If you can be unconfused, this is true constancy. If you can be truly constant, you may respond to people all day without ever having responded. As you are in the realm of no thing and are not moved by anything, what can obstruct response? When not confused, nature is spontaneously stable. When you respond to people without confusion, the reality of the Tao mind is constantly present. When the reality of the Tao mind is constantly present, the artificiality of the human mind does not arise. When the artificiality of the human mind does not arise, then the temperamental nature does not act up. When the temperamental nature does not act up, the innate nature is clear and bright, like a crystal tower, unaffected, unattached, unmoving, unwavering. It is spontaneously stable. The effect of stabilization of nature depends on the work of responding to people without confusion. Get confused and the human mind does things. The true nature is obscured and artificial nature acts up. Do not get confused and the Tao mind does things. The artificial nature is transformed and the true nature is revealed. The path of stabilizing nature is all a matter of not getting confused. In his Yellow Crane Ode, Lu Yen says, cultivate transcendental truths based on worldly truths. Fine words indeed. When nature is stable, energy spontaneously returns. Nature is inner design. In heaven, it is principle. In humans, it is nature. Therefore, that nature is called celestial nature. Energy is life. In heaven, it is energy. In people, it is life. Therefore, that life is called celestial life. When people are first born, principle and energy are not separate. Nature and life are not separate. Principle and energy are one individual. Nature and life are one thing. It is by mixing with the temporal that principle and energy lose continuity and nature and life become separate. If you can stabilize your nature and not be moved by external influences, true energy will spontaneously return. Where there was no life, there will again be life. Nature and life will be one as before. Principle and energy are basically not at odds. This is what is called fulfilling nature and attaining life. The restoration of energy is all a matter of stabilization of nature. If you can be stable in nature, then energy will spontaneously return. It cannot be forced. When energy returns, the pill spontaneously crystallizes. The pill is something round and bright. It is formed through the combination of two energies, yin and yang. When one's nature is stabilized and all thoughts have stopped, this is called true calm and true openness. When calm reaches the extreme, there is movement. When openness reaches the extreme, it produces light. The primal energy comes from within open non-reification, and in a trice it congeals into a pill. Generally speaking, the essence of restoration of the elixir pill is in the return of energy. The essence of the return of energy is in stabilization of nature. The essence of stabilization of nature is in not getting confused. The essence of not getting confused is in conquering the mind. And the essence of conquering the mind is in knowing the source progenitor. When you know the source progenitor, you conquer the mind and respond to others without being confused by others. Your nature is spontaneously stabilized. Energy spontaneously returns, and the elixir pill spontaneously crystallizes. The spontaneity in each case comes from responding to others without confusion. Responding to others without confusion is the work of refining the self. As it is said, when refinement of the self is complete, the restored elixir spontaneously crystallizes. The Song of Understanding the Tao says, before refining the restored elixir, first refine nature. Before cultivating the great medicine, for now cultivate the mind. When your nature is settled, naturally news of the elixir arrives. When the mind is calm, sprouts of the herb grow. Restoring the elixir is very easy. Refining the self is very hard. If self-refinement does not reach the point where there is no self, one's nature will not be settled and one's mind will not be calm. how can the elixir be restored? But to refine oneself, it is necessary to know the source progenitor. Otherwise, don't do the practice. Old San Fang said, when you set up the foundation, you need to use the bellows. When you refine yourself, you must have true lead. True lead is the source progenitor. If you do not meet a real teacher who can tell you all about the great medicine of true lead, who could dare to set to work? In the pot, pair water and fire. When energy returns and the elixir pill crystallizes, the true seed is in your hands, but you have only restored the original face you were born with. This is called restored elixir, and it is called minor restored elixir. This elixir has still not been forged by true water and fire. It is still raw elixir, not yet mature. It cannot yet be ingested to save life. This elixir must be refined into something that is purely positive before it can extend your years and enhance your life. The I Ching trigram for water is yin outside and yang inside. The yang inside is real, creative energy in correct balance. This is the spiritual water of primal true unity. The trigram for fire is yang outside and yin inside. The yin inside it is real receptivity in correct balance. This is the true fire of primal open awareness. This water and fire are the water and fire of spaciousness and spontaneity, not any sort of water or fire with shape or form. Use this water and fire to boil spiritual medicine 24 hours a day. Don't let there be any interruptions. Don't forget about it, but don't try to urge it along either. Continuously on the brink of existence, use it without urgency. This is what is meant by the statement in the guide to putting in the medicine. Beware lest the water dry up or the fire go cold. As for the expression pair in the pot, natural water and fire need not be sought externally. The luminosity of the spirit works silently, not leaking any information on the processes that go on in the vast, profound secrecy. The quality of the medicinal ingredients, the advance and withdrawal of the firing, the adjustments according to the time. The birth of yin and yang repeats, producing a peal of thunder everywhere. The work of cooking and refining with water and fire is that work known as difficulty in the morning, darkness at night. Difficulty in the morning means advancing the yang fire. Darkness at night means working the yin convergence. When it is time for yang, then promote yang. When it is time for yin, then operate yin. Yin to yang, yang to yin, yin and yang hold together, themselves producing repetition. What repeats is found in ecstasy. In the dark of the unknown, there is change. Repeating this over and over again, yin and yang completely transform. The sprouts of primal awareness grow firm and mature. Gradually, practice leads to sudden realization. All at once, from the furnace of creation, there spurts out a pill of pure positive energy, like a peal of thunder in the sky, waking up dreamers. White clouds gather over the peak. Sweet dew showers the polar mountain. When the positive energy pill pops out of the crucible, swallow it, and it will act on your individual weak mercurality, like a cat catching a mouse. White clouds gathering over the peak means that a gentle, clear energy rises and the 5 energies gather at the source. Sweet dew showering the polar mountain means spiritual water from the flower pond descends, and health is recovered from all illnesses. The polar mountain is right in the middle of heaven and earth. Thus it is a symbol for the existence of one reality in the center of the human being. The one reality in the center is the spiritual embryo, which is also called yellow sprouts. This is the meaning of a famous line by Lu Yen. Thunder in the earth stirs movement. There is rain on the top of the mountain, needed to wash the yellow sprouts emerging from the earth. Drinking the wine of long life by myself, I roam free, unknown to anyone. When the spiritual embryo congeals, spiritual water flows, irrigating the elixir field. The substanceless spontaneously produces substance. The formless produces form. All forced effort is useless. That is why he says, drinking the wine of long life by myself, I roam free, unknown to anyone. When he says he drinks by himself, unknown to anyone, this is because the matter of eternal life and freedom is a matter of taking over the operation of the universe. Inviolate to nature in the primordial, in the service of the time of nature in the temporal. This is unfathomable even to the spiritual awareness of heaven and earth, to say nothing of other people. Sitting listening to the stringless tune, one clearly comprehends the mechanism of creation. Zhuang Tzu said, concentrate vitality and spirit and you live long. Forget vitality and spirit and you are unborn. Long life is a path of perfecting life by doing. Being unborn is the path of perfecting essence by non-doing. The path of perfecting essence is the work of 9 years facing a wall. The work of facing a wall is the work of 10 months of incubation. When we say 9 years, it does not mean there really is a period of 9 years. It is just that 9 is the number of pure yang. So it has the meaning of the 9 restoration of the gold liquid when mundane is exhausted and the celestial is pure. This is what is meant by the saying that as long as the slightest mundanity is left, one does not become immortal. As for the notion of 10 months, this is also a symbol. The formation of the spiritual embryo and its emergence from the matrix of mundanity is likened to the course of human pregnancy, which lasts 10 lunar months. The work of 10 months of incubation is to prevent danger carefully. All things are empty. No external energy is allowed to enter the embryo. One is like a massive wall, seeing nothing at all. The 10 months of incubation and 9 years of facing a wall have the same meaning. They are not different things. Both are merely symbolic representations used by the ancients. Because of this incubation facing a wall, the author speaks of sitting, listening to the stringless tune. Sitting does not mean physically sitting. It means the mind is quiet and the intellect is still. It is the sitting of imperturbability. A string tune has sound. The stringless tune has no sound. Having no sound means emptiness. Since there is no sound, what is there to listen to? Listening means emptiness is not empty. Not empty, yet empty. It is not senseless emptiness, but true openness. Sitting listening means leaving the one-sidedness of wishful thinking and not being attached to it at all. Listening to the stringless tune means listening without listening. Having detached from the listener, one also is unattached to the sound. The Buddhist diamond scripture says, those who see me in form, those who seek me in sound, are on a false path and cannot see the enlightened. This is the truly open original face, which is the great method for freeing the spiritual potential, the true secret for perfecting the spiritual body. To sum up, the work of non-doing is expressed in the word sitting. Sitting means stopping in the right place and inwardly observing the mind, outwardly observing the body, and at a distance observing things. You see the mind as having no such mind, the body as having no such form, and things as having no such things. Once you understand these three, you see only emptiness, and emptiness does not empty anything. There is not even any absence of nothingness. Once there is not even any absence of nothingness, this is called seeing all the way through space, uniquely revealing the whole body, unborn and undying. This at last is complete attainment. Living is the means of escaping the illusory body, and it is the path of the restorative elixir that stabilizes life. It creates being from nothingness. Being unborn is the means of escaping the spiritual body and realizing the source of the essence of consciousness, the path of the great elixir. It transforms from being into non-being. Living and being unborn are mechanisms of creation. Those who know this science start by creating being from non-being to live long, then finally return from being to non-being to be unborn. Neither being nor non-being is final. Essence and life are cultivated simultaneously. They clearly understand the mechanism of the evolution of heaven and earth and are one with heaven and earth. In our primary hexagram, our bottom trigram will be read as broken, broken, solid, which is Gen Mountain, the trigram of Gen Mountain. The mountain is still, it is a limit where you must stop. Gen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Mountain is the youngest son, child of maturity. In the cycle of directions and seasons, he is the northeast, late winter approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, 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 which is Kun, earth. Kun is earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is mother, found in the southwest and the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. Once our changing line changes, that being line 4, that will give us a top or outer trigram of solid, broken, broken, which is Zen, thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. So, putting our trigrams together will form our primary and secondary hexagrams. So, when we have broken, broken, broken above solid, broken, broken, or Kun earth above Gen mountain, that gives us hexagram 15. And once our fourth line transforms from old yin to young yang, that will give us Zen thunder above Gen mountain, which will be the hexagram 62. We'll start out by reading from, first off, let's show how our reading works together. To answer the question we bring to the I Ching when we consult the oracle, that question having the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. We'll understand the answer to that when we understand how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. So we will start to translate what those hexagrams mean with I-ming's Taoist I Ching. He wrote it as a Taoist adept in 1796, and Thomas Cleary's translated it. So our primary hexagram, 15, is humility. Inwardly firm, outwardly flexible, having personal attainment but not dwelling on it. In 62, is predominance of the small, being fulfilled but acting empty, inwardly strong, outwardly yielding, inwardly firm, outwardly flexible. We'll start by reading the text section, and then we will read our changing line 4, which will be the most focused part of our reading. And then we'll go to the commentary section, which does not have any changing lines in it. Then we will go to a few different commentaries, James Dekorne and then Hilary Barrett. And we'll wrap it up with a reading from the Tao Te Ching. Hexagram 15, our primary hexagram, humility. Humility is developmental. The superior person has a conclusion. Explanation. Humility means possession without dwelling on it. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is earth, submissive, and below is mountain, still. Firmness still within, flexibility accords without. Inwardly firm while outwardly flexible, it is therefore called humility. This hexagram represents preservation of yang by yin. It follows on the previous hexagram, sameness with people. Sameness with people means mixing in with the ordinary world inconspicuously, using strength with clarity so that strength is not used arbitrarily. Unless one's development and maturity is quite deep and rich, one cannot do this. The work of deepening development is precisely the work of preserving yang by yin. Preserving yang by yin is that whereby openness is consummated and tranquility pure, staying in the appropriate place. Mountain is where one kills the self. Earth is where one enlivens the self. Those who have not yet died first learn to die. This is the stilling of yang. Non-birth is eternal life. This is the submission of yin. The stilling of yang is stopping false yang, the nurturing true yang, and nurturing true yang. The submission of yin is using true yin to repel false yin. When false yang stops and true yang remains, this is called nurturing. When false yin retreats and true yin appears, this is called submission. When one is able to nurture and to submit, one governs oneself with strictness and responds to others with openness. The mind becomes increasingly humble, while the way becomes increasingly lofty. Outwardly one is lacking, inwardly one has more than enough. Submitting to truth and according with people, one rests in the highest good and does not move. This is why the path of humility is beneficial. However, if one can be humble in the beginning but not in the end, this is having a start but no conclusion. When stillness is not stable and submission is not appropriate, humility is false and not real, so it cannot be developmental. Only superior people who practice the Tao know where to stop, disregard what they have, and appear to have nothing. They are single-minded on pure reality. They have a start and a conclusion, following the Tao in their acts, growing ever stronger and the longer they go on. Therefore they attain the primordial emptiness coming from within nothingness, congealing it into the elixir. Those who are not superior people think they have what they have not, think they are fulfilled when in fact they are empty. Self-satisfied, though they be reverent outwardly, they are not respectful inwardly. Diligent in the beginning, they end up lazy. They inevitably wind up stopping true yang and using false yang, obeying human desires and violating celestial principles. This is not only unfortunate, it is also not developmental. How could it be considered humility? Moving on to our supporting hexagram 62, which sets our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel. It shows what the primary hexagram means for us. Hexagram 62, our supporting hexagram, predominance of the small. Predominance of the small is developmental, beneficial if correct. It is suitable for a small affair, but not for a great one. The call left by a flying bird should not rise but descend. This is very auspicious. Explanation. Predominance of the small means that yin exceeds yang. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is thunder, active, and below is mountain, still. Acting with restraint, basing action on stillness. Stillness is stable and action is not on a large scale. Also, in the body of the hexagram, 2 yangs are inside 4 yins. Inwardly fulfilled, outwardly empty. Inwardly firm, outwardly flexible. Using the small to nurture the great. It is therefore called predominance of the small. This hexagram represents being fulfilled and thus acting empty. It follows on the previous hexagram, discipline. In discipline, one can be joyful even in danger, inwardly being autonomous, using things of the world to practice the principles of the Tao, using social activities to restore celestial qualities, the foundation of life stable, one can enter from striving into non-striving. In spiritual alchemy, before primordial true yang has been restored, one should empty the mind to seek to fill the belly. That's emptying the human mind to fill the belly with the Tao. Once primordial true yang has returned, one should fill the belly and also empty the mind. The achievement of emptying the mind is the means to operate the natural true fire, to burn away the mundane energy of acquired conditioning until one is freed from it. This is why predominance of the small is developmental. However, though predominance of the small is developmental, it is only beneficial if correct. If it is not correct, it is not developmental. The correct way of predominance of the small is that action not stray from tranquility, that action be carried out with tranquility. With movement and stillness as one, the real person plunges into the profound depths, floating about yet keeping within the circle, neither indifferent nor obsessed, keeping a very subtle consistency. This is suitable for a small affair, but not a great one. A small affair means non-striving. A great affair means striving. Striving is the way to find yang. Non-striving is the way to nurture yang. Once one has filled the belly, it is appropriate that the small predominate to nurture yang. If you are capable of the great but not the small, you will not only be unable to preserve yang, yang will even be damaged. Predominance of the small being beneficial when correct means it is beneficial in small action, not in great action. Beneficial in small stillness, not in great stillness. When one acts yet is able to be still, being active in the midst of stillness, stopping in the appropriate place and acting on that, even as one acts, one does not go beyond the appropriate position. This is like the call left by a flying bird should not rise but descend. Though a bird flies up, its call goes down. This means action not straying from tranquility. Action not straying from tranquility should not rise but descend, the small predominating and nurturing the great, extracting lead and adding mercury, incubating for 10 months. When the spiritual embryo is completely developed, with a thunderous cry the infant appears. When nurturance is sufficient, the auspicious outcome is great. The small predominates, but the good it does is great. Sublime and subtle indeed is the predominance of the small that is beneficially correct. We'll turn back to our primary hexagram 15, but first we will read what the general context is for our changing line 4, that being the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. This again is our most focused part of the reading. Puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 4 of our primary hexagram 15, humility. Beneficial to all, extending humility. Explanation. Being flexible yet maintaining rectitude. Already capable of humility toward the worthy, also capable of humility toward the low. This is called extending humility. Extending humility to the utmost in all situations. This is the humility of flexibility, benefiting all. We'll now turn and read from the commentary section out of the back here on our primary and secondary hexagrams, keeping in mind that we're not going to read our changing line. So what we just read was the most focused part for us. In the back, the commentary section, our primary hexagram 15 is actually called modesty. Earth above, mountain below. There are mountains in the earth, modesty. Thus does the superior person decrease the abundant and add to the scarce, assessing things and dealing impartially. Modesty means to have endowments but not dwell on them. Above is earth, below is mountain. This is the existence of mountains in the earth. Originally, mountains are high and earth is low, inwardly concealing high attainments while in a state of lowliness. Being outwardly empty yet inwardly fulfilled is the image of modesty. What the superior people see in this is that people have an abundance of pride and a scarcity of humility. Therefore, they act presumptuously and are never impartial. Therefore, superior people decrease the abundant pride and increase the scarce humility. When handling affairs and dealing with people, they assess the relative importance of things, determine what is appropriate according to the situation, and deal impartially with it. Superior people capable of modesty have talent but do not presume upon it. They have virtue but do not dwell on it. They have no conception of self and no images of others. All pride and arrogance have vanished from them, and their minds are always equanimous. When the mind is equanimous, one is naturally also impartial in one's dealings. Inwardly equanimous, outwardly impartial, one's virtue grows daily more lofty, one's heart grows daily more humble. Outwardly appearing to be lacking, inwardly having more than enough. Many are the benefits of modesty. And our supporting hexagram in the commentary section is called excessive smallness. This hexagram, the supporting hexagram, sets our primary hexagram in a general context, an influence of travel, and shows what the primary hexagram means for us. Excessive smallness, thunder above, mountain below. There is thunder over a mountain, excessively small. Thus, the superior people are excessively differential in conduct, excessively sad in mourning, excessively frugal in consumption. Excessive smallness means excess in being small. Above is thunder, below is mountain. There is thunder over a mountain. When thunder is up in the sky, its sound reaches afar, but when thunder is over a mountain, its sound is muffled. This is the image of excessive smallness. What superior people see in this is that practitioners of the Tao should minimize themselves in their daily activities and not become too grand. This is because it is permissible to go to excess in being small, but not in being grand. Therefore, superior people are excessively differential in conduct, excessively sad in mourning, and excessively frugal in consumption. It is not right to be too differential in conduct, but when one is differential, one does not look down on people or become arrogant. So there is no harm in being excessively differential. It is not right to be too sad in mourning, but when one is sad, there is grief in the heart, and one esteems nature and life, so there is no harm in being excessively sad. It is not right to be too frugal in consumption, but when one is frugal, one does not waste natural resources and is content with what one has, so there is no harm in being excessively frugal. These three things are all examples of excessive smallness, excessive without being too extreme. This is how it is with such small matters. When it comes to the great matter of nature and life, one must know the appropriate moments to advance and withdraw. To sustain and negate, one must know the principles of filling and emptying, effacing and fostering. Since even the slightest miss can result in an enormous loss, no excess is permissible. In the image of the hexagram, there is thunder over a mountain. The mountain is still, the thunder is in movement. Action is carried forth by means of stillness. Action is based on stillness. Obviously, the small may be excessive, but the great may not be excessive. We'll now read from James Dekorne, who synthesizes several commentaries and gives his own editor's notes, which are often lucid and profound, him being a practitioner of the Tao himself. Our primary hexagram 15, he calls temperance. Other titles might be modesty, the symbol of humility, moderation, humbling, respectful, humble, yielding, retiring. 1. Obtaining this hexagram implies that modesty is needed in our attitude, meaning to allow ourselves to be led without resistance. A quote from C.K. Anthony, and now a quote from Chung Wu. 2. A humble or modest person is thought of as having an empty or unoccupied mind, meaning a mind without prejudice. And 3, a quote from Thomas Cleary. Only superior people who practice Tao know where to stop, disregard what they have, and appear to have nothing. Judgment. Ritsuma/Karcher. Humbling, growing. A chunsu, or chief son, or superior person, possesses completing. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the necessity to cut through pride and complication. It emphasizes that keeping your words unpretentious is the adequate way to handle it. Wu, humility is pervasive. The chunsi, or chief son, or superior person, will have grace in death. The image. Leg, a mountain hidden within the earth, the image of temperance. The superior man, in accordance with this, diminishes his excesses to augment his insufficiencies, thus creating a just balance. Wilhelm/Baines, within the earth, a mountain, the image of modesty. Thus, the superior man reduces that which is too much and augments that which is too little. He weighs things and makes them equal. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes a mountain in the center of the earth. The superior man takes from where there is too much in order to augment what is too little. He weighs things and apportions them fairly. The component trigrams symbolize a mountain surrounded by flat earth, thus suggesting too much in one place and too little in others. Wu, there is a mountain inside earth. This is humility. Thus, the chunsi, or chief son, or superior person, takes excess from the more to enrich the less and measures goods to ensure fair distribution. To prepare oneself to accept what is fair among all his fellow men is the essence of humility. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. It is the way of heaven to dispense its blessings downwards, and the way of earth to radiate its influence upwards. Both heaven and earth diminish the full to augment the lowly. Spiritual beings inflict calamity on the proud and bless the meek, and men resent ostentation and love temperance. Temperance enlightens an honorable office, and neither will men ignore it in lowly positions. Thus does the superior man attain his ends. Emphasis editors. Ritsuma/Karcher translate spiritual beings, Q Shen, as the whole range of imaginal beings both inside and outside the individual. Spiritual powers, gods, demons, ghosts, powers, fetishes. Leg. An essay on temperance rightly follows that on abundant possessions. The third line, dynamic among 5 magnetic lines, in the topmost place of the trigram of keeping still, is the ruler of the hexagram. He is the representative of temperance, strong but self-effacing. The idea is that temperance is the way to permanent success. The Confucian commentary deals generally with the subject of temperance, showing how it is valued by heaven and earth, by spirits and by men. The descent of the heavenly influences and the low position of the earth are both symbolic of temperance. The heavenly influences are seen in the daily fluctuations of the sun and the moon, and the fertility of the earth correspondingly waxes and wanes with the seasons. The daily lecture says, the 5 yin lines above and below symbolize the earth. The 1 yang line in the center is the mountain in the midst of the earth. The many yin lines represent men's desires. The 1 yang line represents the heavenly principle. The superior man, looking at this symbolism, diminishes the multitude of human desires within him and increases the single shoot of the heavenly principle. So does he become grandly just and can deal with all things evenly according to the nature of each. In whatever circumstances or place he is, he will do what is right. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Temperance means maintaining a dynamic, magnetic balance of forces to attain success. The superior man maintains equilibrium in all that he does. The most common translation of the title of this hexagram is modesty, but I have chosen temperance as a title more expressive of the ideas in the image and Confucian commentary. The words modesty and humility often carry a connotation of weakness in Western usage, and temperance, meaning to temper or regulate, is more expressive of the dynamic strength of will required to restrain and modulate the drive to dominate every situation. The image shows a mountain hidden beneath the earth. The quiet, invincible power of sheer will is hidden from view, yet it influences everything. Who, observing such a level surface, would know that the bulk of Mount Everest was buried beneath it? Temperance means that one's power is hidden, that the fluctuations of heaven and earth are kept in such dynamic, magnetic balance as to be invisible to ordinary vision. The temperate person is strong enough to bear the weight of the world when that is necessary for the work. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic Roman emperor, was arguably the most powerful man of his time, yet his temperance and modesty showed him to fulfill the ideal of the superior man. Only the truly strong can be truly modest. A quote from Marcus Aurelius. And let this truth be present to thee in the excitement of anger, that to be moved by passion is not manly, but that mildness and gentleness, as they are more agreeable to human nature, so also are they more manly. And he who possesses these qualities possesses strength, nerves, and courage, and not the man who is subject to fits of passion and discontent. For in the same degree in which a man's mind is nearer to freedom from all passions, in the same degree also is it nearer to strength. Suggestions for meditation. Compare this hexagram with hexagram number 41, compensating sacrifice. What are the similarities between the two figures? Compare also with hexagram number 16, enthusiasm. What basic principles of the work emerge? And before we read our changing line, we'll read our supporting hexagram 62, which he calls small powers. Our supporting hexagram, again, puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, in influence and direction of travel. It shows what our primary hexagram means for us. Small powers, hexagram 62, might also have other titles such as preponderance of the small, the symbol of excess in small things, the small get by, slight excess, small exceeding, small surpassing, excess of the small, small gains, conscientiousness, smallness in excess, exceeding the mean, proliferation of details. Quote from D.F. Hook, like a bird, do not fly too high or attempt too much, because this will lead to disaster. Judgment, leg. Small powers indicates that there will be progress and attainment in small affairs, but not in great affairs. It will be advantageous to be firm and correct. It is like the song of a flying bird. It is better to descend than to ascend. In this way, there will be good fortune. Blowfold, the small get by, success. Persistence in a righteous course brings reward. Small things can be accomplished now, but not great ones. When birds fly high, their singing is out of tune. The humble, but not the mighty, are favored now with great good fortune. To aim high now would be to put ourselves out of accord with the times. Lu, slight excess, success. Continuing is of benefit. Undertaking small things, not great things. The song of the flying bird, it is not good to go up, it is good to stay below. Great good fortune. Slight excess signifies the slight excess or small mistake that can prevent the achievement of great things. Ritsima/Carter, small exceeding, growing, harvesting trial, permitting small affairs, not permitting great affairs. Flying bird, abandoning's sound. above not proper, below proper, the great significant. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of an overwhelming variety of encounters and details. It emphasizes that an excessive concern with adapting yourself to these inner and outer events is the adequate way to handle it. The image, Wilhelm/Baines, thunder on the mountain, the image of preponderance of the small. Thus in his conduct, the superior man gives preponderance to reverence. In bereavement, he gives preponderance to grief. In his expenditures, he gives preponderance to thrift. The superior man derives an imperative from this image. He must always fix his eyes more closely and more directly on duty than does the ordinary man, even though this might make his behavior seem petty to the outside world. He is exceptionally conscientious in his actions. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. In small powers, we see the magnetic lines exceeding the others and giving the intimation of progress and attainment. To be advantageous, such excesses must be associated with firm correctness and must always be in harmony with the requirements of the time. The magnetic lines are in the central places, and hence it is said that small excesses may be done in small affairs with good effect. Of the dynamic lines, one is not in its proper place, and the other is not central. Thus it is said that small excesses should not be done in great affairs. In the hexagram, we have the symbol of the flying bird, whose song reminds us that it is better to descend than to ascend. To ascend is contrary to what is reasonable in the case, while to descend is natural and right. Leg. The meaning of this hexagram, in which an excess of yin lines prevails, may be grasped by contrasting its image with that of hexagram number 28, critical mass, in which an excess of yang lines prevails. Here the idea is the prevalence of small or inferior powers, and the lesson to be learned is how to distinguish essentials from non-essentials. Is it ever good to deviate from the established course of procedure? The answer is that it is permissible only in small matters, but never in matters of import. Sometimes form may be dispensed with, but never substance, and the thing must always be done responsibly and with appropriate humility. The symbol of the bird is to teach humility. It is better for it to descend, keeping near to where it can perch and rest, than to ascend into the homeless regions of the upper air. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Ground your flights of fancy. The superior man bends over backwards to be correct. Small power shows the preceding figure of inner truth turned inside out. Here the magnetic lines are all on the outside, uncontained and uncontrolled. The hexagram often reflects a situation in which the archetypes, the passions, appetites, emotions, drives, and instincts have left their proper places within the psyche and are flying free like birds escaped from the zoo. Most of the lines either depict the danger of such a situation or warn about how to control it. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. In this inflated, compulsive state of identity, we and the drive are at our most harmful. The drive will unfold and we will act out its extreme, inappropriate, and destructive side. In the process, we get the worst of it, along with the other people involved. The wrong thing usually happens at the wrong time and in the wrong place. A capacity for moving toward differentiation and transforming the drive will not arise until the state of identity has been dissolved. This requires a confrontation of the drive as a thou, as something that is not I, as something separate from ourselves. Only at this point can the inner dialogue begin. Until then, the drive remains unconscious, primitive, and destructive. Only after the identity has been dissolved by learning to experience the drive as an autonomous entity that is separate from the ego, do we get a chance to choose a right time and place and to develop the positive potential of the drive. Interestingly, the only line that seems to be correctly out of its cage is the second, suggesting a situation in which an intuitive inner wisdom takes proper precedence over the usual firm correctness of reason. Going back to our primary hexagram 15, temperance, to read our changing line 4, which is our most focused part of our reading, puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 4 has the general context, again, of the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 4 in hexagram 15. Leg. The fourth line, magnetic, shows one whose action would be in every way advantageous, stirring up the more her temperance. Slothnacy. There is nothing not beneficial. False modesty. Cleary 1. Beneficial to all, extending humility. Wu. Promoting humility is nothing but advantageous. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. In doing this, she does not act contrary to the proper rule. Wilhelm/Baines. He does not overstep the rule. Blofeld. This involves no departure from what is right. Wu. Because it violates no principle. Leg. Line 4 is magnetic and in her proper place. She is sure to be successful and prosperous, but being so near the fifth line ruler, she should still use the greatest precaution. The proper rule is the rule proper for her in her circumstances so near the place of the ruler. Notes and paraphrases. Siu. The man maintains his modesty in the proper perspective. He does not avoid his responsibilities, abuse the ruler's confidence, or conceal the subordinate's merit. Wing. Once the balance of true moderation is reached, it must be continually maintained. This does not mean simply maintaining the form of moderation, but continuing to cultivate equilibrium in your character and a sense of responsibility toward your society. Editor. An unambiguous image of temperate action. In a quote from Jung, Depth Psychology and Self-Knowledge. Modesty and humility are not signs of an inferiority complex. They are highly estimable, indeed admirable virtues and not complexes. They prove that their fortunate possessor is not a presumptuous fool, but knows his limitations and will therefore never stumble beyond the bounds of humanity, dazzled and intoxicated by his imagined greatness. He breaks down line 4 into one succinct definition. A. Advance the work through temperate, well-considered action without exceeding your authority. We will now turn to Hilary Barrett, who is pretty succinct and also practical and also sometimes quite profound. She calls hexagram 15 our primary hexagram integrity. Key questions. What is the simple reality? How might you return to a state of balance? What if it didn't all depend on you? Oracle. Integrity creates success. A noble one completes it. To experience integrity is like coming face to face with your real self, plain, simple, and unadorned. To have integrity is to be whole, at one with yourself and with reality. It means being honest about your own capacities, holding yourself in creative balance with your world and not exaggerating the importance of your role. These qualities enable the noble one to bring whatever work presents itself to completion. Since she is not overly full of herself, she has space for the real world. She isn't hampered by an excess or by a lack of confidence. Since she isn't caught up in a personal story and doesn't identify her work with her worth, she is free to do what needs to be done and move on. Image. In the center of the earth there is a mountain. Integrity. A noble one reduces what is too much and increases what is diminished, weighing things up to even out their distribution. The earth is unassuming and supports all beings. You might never realize that it contains the height and solidity of a mountain at its center. A noble one is inwardly as self-sufficient as a mountain and as firm as bedrock. She has quietly built up the inner resources to sustain an intelligent, centered generosity. She reduces exaggeration and brings things back to a state of equilibrium, weighing up what is needed from moment to moment, and always referring back to that inner balance point. Sequence. Integrity follows from hexagram 14, great possession. Great possession means being incapable of arrogance, and so integrity follows. Integrity does not mean a false humility. When we are confident in our gifts, we can see ourselves in true proportion with everything and everyone else, and we become capable of integrity. Pair. Integrity forms a pair with hexagram 16, enthusiasm. Integrity takes itself lightly. Enthusiasm is careless. Integrity is simple and down to earth. Enthusiasm is grand and adventurous, enlarging our sense of self through colorful images and stories. Neither is very concerned about outcomes, but for different reasons. Enthusiasm might insist that nothing can go wrong for you, while integrity suggests that what happens to you isn't such an important matter. And our supporting hexagram 62, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, and shows what our primary hexagram means for us. She calls our supporting hexagram 62 small exceeding. Key questions. Do you need to cross a line? What small things can you do to meet the needs of the situation? How can you take even more care? Oracle. Small exceeding, creating success. Constancy bears fruit. Allows small works, does not allow great works. A bird in flight leaves its call. Going higher is not fitting. Coming down is fitting. Great good fortune. Exceeding or going past is a transition, the moment when you step over a line. And small exceeding means making this crossing in small ways. Going beyond boundaries and structures, but paying close attention to them, always responding and adjusting like a humble traveler crossing over great mountains. This is a creative way to engage with the world, no matter how small you feel. You're in no position to realize great things all at once, but it is worthwhile to do the smaller things that are within your capacity, taking small steps with consistent purpose. Small exceeding is like a bird in flight, small, exposed, and vulnerable as it crosses over a vast expanse of sky. It must come down and settle eventually, and even as it passes by and is gone, its call reminds you not to go against your nature and overreach yourself. For your own unique call to be heard, you need to fly closer to the ground and pay attention to details, creating a more sensitive connection with your world. When you come down to earth in this way, scaling down your aspirations, crossing over in small ways and doing small works, then you enjoy great good fortune. Image. Above the mountain is thunder, small exceeding. A noble one in actions exceeds in respect. In loss exceeds in mourning. In spending exceeds in economy. Distant thunder is heard far over the mountains. A noble one's actions rest on a firm knowledge of limits, but also go just a little beyond them, like the soft sound of the thunder carrying beyond its origins. He will do more than is expected of him to honor a transition, paying careful attention to what is irreversible and exceeding what might be considered sufficient and sensible in his response. So he shows more respect for all involved, mourns the losses more freely, and also takes more care over expenditure, making provision for the future. Sequence. Small exceeding follows from hexagram 61, inner truth. To have trust naturally means acting on it, and so small exceeding follows. When you are filled with inner conviction, you are naturally moved to action. The truth you experienced inwardly becomes a message you must carry safely out into the world. And we will read our changing line 4 of our primary hexagram again with the context of the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And our changing line is our most focused part of our reading and takes precedence over all other elements. It puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. From our primary hexagram 15, integrity, changing line 4, nothing that does not bear fruit, displaying integrity. When you have integrity, you are at one with yourself and your world. Every encounter, every detail is a chance to respond authentically, and so everything in your experience bears fruit. Then you can communicate with no need for grand gestures or carefully designed messages. Even your smallest actions are always sending a clear signal without interference. I'll read a chapter out of the Tao Te Ching. Chapter 43, 39, and 79. Translated by Jia-Fu Fang and Jane English. Chapter 43 of the Tao Te Ching. The softest thing in the universe overcomes the hardest thing in the universe. That without substance can enter where there is no room. Hence I know the value of non-action. Teaching without words and work without doing are understood by very few. And 39. These things from ancient times arise from one. The sky is whole and clear. The earth is whole and firm. The spirit is whole and strong. The valley is whole and full. The 10,000 things are whole and alive. Kings and lords are whole, and the country is upright. All these are in virtue of wholeness. The clarity of the sky prevents its falling. The firmness of the earth prevents its splitting. The strength of the spirit prevents its being used up. The fullness of the valley prevents its running dry. The growth of the 10,000 things prevents their dying out. The leadership of kings and lords prevents the downfall of the country. Therefore the humble is the root of the noble. The low is the foundation of the high. Princes and lords consider themselves orphaned, widowed, and worthless. Do they not depend on being humble? Too much success is not an advantage. Do not tinkle like jade or clatter like stone chimes. And 79. After a bitter quarrel, some resentment must remain. What can one do about it? Therefore the sage keeps his half of the bargain, but does not exact his due. A man of virtue performs his part, but a man without virtue requires others to fulfill their obligations. The Tao of heaven is impartial. It stays with good men all the time.